Welcome and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Kovich. I'm the node manager for the Spanish RDA national node. And together with Fabrizio Gagliardi, we are the hosts of this webinar today. We would like to present to you briefly the RDA global and national activities, as well as the RDA adoption cases that we have here in Spain, related open science initiatives such as OpenAIRE, EOSC, and the eScience network. Before starting, I want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. So we plan to make it available afterwards on our RDA Spain node page, as well as the presentations of our speakers here today. And before we continue, now that many of you have already connected, I would like to initiate this little poll to get to know our audience a little better and to find out from you what your background is and how familiar you are with the RDA. So if you could take just a few seconds to answer these two questions. And yeah, while I give you some time to answer, maybe I summarize briefly our agenda for today. In the first part, we will have short presentations by all of our panelists. We have Sara Garavelli here, who's the project manager for the RDA EU4 project. Then I will introduce a little bit our national node. We have the two adoption cases. Then Eva Mendes Rodriguez, who is our RDA ambassador for interdisciplinary research. We have Alicia Gomez from the OpenAIRE National Open Access Desk, and Ignacio Blanquer from the Spanish Network for eScience and also the Eoc Synergy project. And in the second part of the webinar today, we would like to have a discussion round in the Q&A session. So yeah, that's more or less what we will do today. I will maybe give you a few more seconds to answer. I see many of you have already voted. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for answering. I'm sharing with you the results. This is more or less our audience for the moment. Many of you are researchers or research support staff, librarians, archivists. We have no policymakers here for the moment, but several that are in other categories. Yeah, thank you very much. I will now give the word to Fabrizio Gagliardi, who will also say a few words before we start with the presentations.
Yeah, so welcome from my side as well. I've been involved with RDAs from the very, very beginning. Don't remember if that was 6 or 7 years ago. And definitely, observe the progress. And then especially in the last couple of years, the progress in all those countries where a national node has been established, and of course, mostly involved with the Spanish one. So, I mean, thank you all, the 32 of you who decide to attend. I think it's a particularly interesting time because more and more the importance of sharing data in the scientific community is confirmed also by the current fight against the COVID-19 and, the importance of sharing data among different scientific communities become even more important than before. The future of RDA is not entirely clear because of other initiatives like OpenAIRE and EOSC, etc., and another and CODA, etc. So there are many overlapping activity. What I understand is RDA will continue at least to be supported in a central way in Europe. And definitely in the Spanish node, we will try to continue to connect to the right initiative and make sure that the scientific community is supported on this very important challenge of promoting the sharing of scientific data. So with that, that is what I had to do. Again, thanking everyone for being in touch and continue to be in touch with us. Back to you, Tamara.
Okay, well then let's start with the presentations. Our first speaker today is Sara Garavelli, who is a project lifecycle strategist and project manager at Trust IT, and she's also the project manager for our RDA EU4 project, among others. So please, Sara. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Tamara and Fabrizio, for this invitation and for organizing this webinar. So I'm Sara Garavelli from Tri-City Services. I'm the RDA Europe 4 coordinator. So I've seen from the poll that there are not many people so familiar with RDA. So I'm going to spend a couple of words about the Research Data Alliance. So what is it, the Research Data Alliance in one word? So of course, surely RDA in one word is about open science, open data. Research data management is also one of the main focal points. Fair principles, data commons, science cloud, and clearly e-research. If we look at the vision of RDA, is that researchers and innovators openly share data across technologies, disciplines, but also countries. So the geographical dimension of RDA is one of the most attracting things for our members. RDA aims to build the social and the technical bridges that enable open sharing of data. On the right side of this slide, you can see the building blocks of RDA, and now I'm spending a couple of words on each of these blocks. The technical heart of RDA lies in the groups, in the RDA groups, that we can differentiate between working groups and interest groups. The working groups are the mechanism to develop and implement tools or policies or practices, products for data management and so on, that can be adopted and used by projects, organizations, and communities. The working groups have a specific duration in time, from 12 to 18 months, and at the moment there are 36 working groups. The main outputs of these working groups are what we call recommendations. These can be tools, standards, code, or policies, and so on. The interest group are, let us say, the level, the lighter level of the working groups. So these are the entry point into RDA, and they are established when there is a specific data sharing problem to be solved. So people are joined together in this interest group to discuss these challenges and so on. And they usually produce what we call outputs. That could be statement for the new working groups, guidelines, or best practices. Focusing a little bit more on the concrete results of the working and interest groups, as I said, we classify them into recommendations. These can be considered like the equivalent of specification or standards that other organizations create and endorse. For your information, 8 of the RDA recommendations have been approved as standards. So RDA is not a standards development organization, but over the past years has built strong synergies with SDOs. And in 2017, it was recognized by the European Multi-Stakeholder Platform for ICT Technical Specification as an organization that can submit potential new ICT technical specification for public procurement procedure. And during our project, we also continue this activity. As I said before, other potential results are classified as outputs that could be, as I said, best practices or tools or other things that are produced by the working groups. And all these results have been translated in more than 100 adoption cases by different organizations and communities worldwide. And I put on the slide the links where you can find examples of the RDA use cases and adoption stories, where you can read the benefits that these organizations had in adopting any of the RDA results. Fabrizio was mentioning before the COVID-19 emergency. So with regards to this point, in March 2020, RDA received a direct request from the European Commission, one of our funders, to create global guidelines and recommendations for data sharing under the COVID-19 circumstances. More than 600 data professionals and experts answered to this call and started working together in April 2020. Recently, I think last week, the final recommendation and guidelines of the COVID-19 working group have been released, and you can find the DOI URL on the slide. And these are a set of detailed guidelines to help both researchers but also policymakers to address these best practices and recommendation to address quality data sharing issues. Especially in these like health emergencies. So the work that has been done from the COVID-19 working group will be also useful as a blueprint for future emergencies that we hope are not happening, but that's a possibility. So when we talk about RDA, we always refer to the community, which is one of the main assets of RDA. As you can see, at this point in time, we have over than 10,000 members from more than 140 different countries. You see on the slide the geographical distribution of the members of RDA, and on the right side you can see that more than 50% of the members are coming from Europe. So Europe, it's really one of the building blocks of the community of RDA. Linking to Europe then, so we were mentioning before that there is a project, an Horizon 2020 project running, which is the RDA Europe 4 project that we call being the European chapter of the Research Data Alliance. The project has been funded by the European Commission with with 5 main objectives. Of course, to support the engagement and the growth of the RDA community in Europe, to contribute to the adoption of the RDA results, being a recommendation or outputs, to drive the process of the RDA ICT technical specification, but also to contribute to the main data movement happening in Europe, the European Open Science Cloud, but also the FAIR movement, and clearly also to support the overall sustainability of RDA in Europe, but also from a global perspective. The project is run by 5 beneficiaries. So Trusted is the coordinator, then there is the University of Göttingen, the Digital Curation Center, the Digital Repository of Ireland, and the RDA Foundation. And when we started, we also had 9 national nodes on board, and I'm going to explain later on what we mean by national nodes. 21% of the budget of the project, that was 3.5 million, has been dedicated to cascading grants. And now I'm going to tell you more about this. So the cascading grant is an innovative engagement mechanism that was adopted and launched with the RDA Europe 4 project. During the duration of the project, which is finishing in September this year, we launched different calls to financially support both individuals and organizations. And you can see on the slide the total amount of budget dedicated to the cascading grants. The grants have been very successful. As you can see, we received more than 250 applications, through which we were able to fund some early careers and experts that were instrumental in supporting the RDA plenaries, so the main gathering points for the RDA community. So the early careers and the experts had the chance to support the work of the working groups and the interest group during the plenaries. And then some other areas have been covered, like the ambassadors, the adoption grants, and the national nodes that I'm going to discuss later on. We also selected the 19 evaluators, over 50 applications received, that were instrumental to support the selection of these grantees. If we look at the ambassador, so the ambassador program was also a novelty of the project, and the pictures that you see on the slides are the current European RDA Europe 4 ambassadors. Who are the ambassadors? They are distinguished and well-connected domain experts that are meant to develop a two-way communication and engagement with the community. From one side, they promote the RDA outputs and perspectives, and from the other side, they try to stimulate communities to contribute to the work of RDA. And in particular, the particular focus was on highlighting the value of RDA and the impact of the collaboration for all those involved. The national nodes, as already mentioned by Fabrizio at the beginning, so this was also a novelty for the RDA Europe project. So there was the need to engage at national level the RDA communities or all the data practitioners working in Europe. So the idea of the RDA Europe project was to establish some national contact points, what we call the RDA Europe nodes. The nodes are either a single organization or a group of organizations that represent a country, and they are committed to support the research data policies at national or regional level. Of course, the nodes are representing the contact of RDA, the bridge between RDA global and the national European communities. They are establishing synergies not only with the researchers and data practitioners, but also with the national governments. And they are also an important contributor to the definition of the European data policies and to the establishment of the European Open Science Cloud, as many of them are playing a key role in this initiative. On the slide, you can see the 9 initial nodes, of which, of course, BSc representing RDA in Spain is one of them. During the duration of the project, through the cascading grants mechanism, additional 13 nodes have been onboarded. And on the slide, you can see the full list of national nodes that now we have in Europe. And on the map, now you can see the full coverage of RDA in Europe. And as you can see, we are covering 22 countries, which is excellent. As I said, one of the important contributions that both the ambassadors, the nodes are bringing, but also the RDA Europe project per se, is how to enhance the adoption of the RDA recommendation and outputs. In the project, we funded 6 adoption projects, and you can see the topics covered by the projects on the slide. But also the RDA Europe project supported RDA Global in seeking for European adoption stories. And I put on the slide the link. So I really encourage you to have a look at these adoption stories, because there you can understand what different communities are doing with RDA and why they found useful to interact and work with RDA. As a side note, recently there has been this RDA Global Adoption Week with over 900 registered people, and that was really a success because that was an occasion to showcase the RDA outputs and recommendation and present how people have leveraged on this. And we will hear more also in this webinar about some particular adoption cases. When it comes to the European Open Science Cloud and the contribution that RDA Europe has brought and the RDA Global is bringing overall, I want to mention the recent communication from the European Council conclusions on shaping Europe's digital future, where they stated that open science principles and the Research Data Alliance recommendations are useful for supporting the decision-making authorities in promoting a flexible common approach for the collection, processing, and availability of data. And this is really welcome in the context of the European Open Science Cloud. So this is a very important recognition of the work of RDA. If we would like to summarize very briefly what are the areas of contribution of RDA to the European Open Science Cloud, we can mention surely the community of RDA. So RDA is a strategic partner to represent the data community in EOSC and also to achieve progress in the different thematic areas. RDA is also the context where existing EOSC initiatives, and I put on the slide some examples of European projects working on the EOSC implementation, where they can collaborate on best practices among themselves, but also in contact with international partners. And of course, the mechanism that I mentioned before to transform recommendation or outputs into SAT technical specification can be used by the European Open Science Cloud to bring the EOSC standards to the market. I also want to mention that RDA Europe has a key role in the EOSC governance. There is one BICAREGI who is a member of the EOSC Executive Board. One is also the coordinator of the UK National Node, and it has always been an active member in RDA. And his mandate is really to represent RDA in the EOSC context, but also many RDA working groups chairs are contributing especially to the EOSC FAIR working group. So I encourage you to look at the recommendation of the FAIR working group, because much of the work is based on what has been done in RDA. But now it's time to look at the future. So as I said before, the RDA Europe project is finishing in September. And this will be the last project funded in such a format from the European Commission. So there won't be an RDA Europe 5. There has been, therefore, some developments from a sustainability perspective in Europe. So the first development has been the establishment of an RDA Foundation Belgium. At the moment, this legal entity is in the form of an SBL, with the idea of to transform it in an AISBL later on in the year. The scope of this new legal entity is to coordinate efforts at European level linked to RDA, and also to seek European funds for the support of the RDA European community. Talking from a broader perspective and linking to the role of the national contact points, RDA recently launched this regional engagement program. So what is regional engagement program about? We are in RDA, we are very well aware that the regional perspectives are important. They are important because they are different. There are local communities that needs to be represented and supported. So RDA will be launching a new board, which will be called the Regional Advisory Board, that is going to complement the two existing boards of the RDA governance. So now the RDA is governed by a council, which is support from a technical advisory board for all the technical matters, so they are advising on technical issues, an organizational advisory board bringing the perspective of the organizations into RDA. This new board will bring the perspective of the regions. This board will be closed to the regions, and when I'm talking about regions, I'm talking about geographical regions that are subscribing to the regional engagement program. What does it mean? So there is a membership fee, but not only. So it's not just about a fee, because the regions can contribute also in different ways. For example, providing in-kind support or in-kind contribution to RDA. And this, each region can discuss his participation into RDA with RDA Global directly, and several or different agreements can be found. The important thing is that the members, so the regions that will be part of the Regional Advisory Board, must have the mandate from their governments. And this to avoid that, let's say, organizations that are not fully supported by their governments or the policies of their country are part of RDA. There is another forum that will be established soon, and actually this will be announced at the end of this month, which is called the Regional Assembly. So the Regional Assembly instead is an open forum where all the regions have the opportunity to participate. And why this forum will be set up? Because it's clear that it's not that easy to get the support from the governments, also from a financial perspective. So RDA wants to be very inclusive towards all the regions that wants to contribute or have contributed in the past. So is really welcoming the contributions and the input from these regions, also to better shape the future sustainability of the regional contributions. So this regional assembly will be launched soon, and will be used as a sort of advisory forum for RDA. If we look more at the European funding, so as I said, the RDA Belgium Foundation has been established to seek some funds from the European Commission, which has always been so far one of the major funders in Europe. Through the RDA Belgium Foundation, RDA was able to participate as a beneficiary in response to the Infra-EOSC 03 call, which was a call that closed last month, mainly aiming at further support and develop the establishment of the European Open Science Cloud. So the RDA Belgium Foundation is a partner in this proposal that we hope will be granted, and there are 4 main areas that will be covered in terms of activities in this future project. The first one, the RDA contribution is there to support the EOSC connected with international data players, and this will be done mainly with via the RDA Global Open Research Commons Interest Group. Probably some of you might remember that last October, when there was the Helsinki plenary of RDA, there was an EOSC event that was held in conjunction. So the idea is really, that event was really successful because the EOSC players were able to get in contact with international experts. So that's one of the things that we want to continue in the next call. There will be for sure financial support to third parties in the form that we have seen before. So for example, supporting ambassador programs, experts, early careers, but also other types of activities. For example, initiatives launched, for example, by the national nodes. So that's another thing that will be supported to the project. As I said, the ICT technical specification mechanism will be adopted for EOSC, and of course RDA will be key for the full stakeholder engagement and training support. RDA Foundation, this time the Global Foundation, is also participating in Horizon 2020 funded project, FAIR, and there RDA is a beneficiary contributing to the definition of the curriculum of data scientists. So that's another work ongoing that will continue after the end of the RDA Europe 4 project. To close my presentation, I just want to remind you some appointments. So the next plenary will be in Costa Rica in November 2020. You have the date on the slide. This plenary will be run in an hybrid format, so both virtual and face-to-face. In spring 2021, there will be the European plenary in Edinburgh. And this plenary, for example, will be co-located with an EOSC day. And to close, I just want to mention a couple of extra events. So the International Data Week 2021, this event consolidates the work that RDA is doing together with CODATA and the World Data System. This will be in Seoul, Republic of Korea, November 21. And just to give you a preview, there will be the International Data Week 2023 in Europe and will be hosted by Austria. And that's it.
Great, thank you very much, Sara, for this overview of the RDA global and European aspects, and also the future regional engagement program and the role in the Infra-EOSC 03 call. I will now continue with the RDA national node. I will, well, since you, Sara, have already mentioned a lot of useful information about the RDA nodes in general, we'll keep this presentation very brief. Yeah, the creation of the RDA national nodes in Europe under the RDA EU 4 project aims basically at incorporating a national focus in a global context and in this universal initiative that is the RDA. So let me see how exactly. So one of the objectives of our national and regional bodies in RDA is transmitting the RDA progress in a more localized way, and also facing or let's say reflecting the national research systems. So the RDA Spanish node is coordinated by Fabrizio Gagliardi and myself at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, the BSC. The relation of the BSC with RDA goes way back, and BSC has been a pioneer in supporting the RDA since its very establishment, and been a part of the projects in RDA 1, 2, 3, and now RDA EU 4. So the BSC brings in the HPC point of view and also big data within important research communities such as earth science and life science research groups, and also counts on an extensive network. For example, the BSC also coordinates the Spanish supercomputing network, where we also collocated our kickoff event for the Spanish node back in 2018. Yeah, in general, the participation of Spanish researchers in RDA is in constant growth. At the moment, we count 363 registered members in Spain, and we had, for example, 17 new members joining recently when the COVID-19 working groups has been established that Sara already mentioned. Yeah, and by the way, the recommendations have recently been published of this group. We also, well, it's available on the RDA page and also on our RDA Spain node page, if you're interested and have not seen it yet. Briefly, what is our mission as the Spanish national node? We want to increase the presence of RDA in RDA of Spanish researchers. We advertise funding opportunities and also want to help the Spanish community to reach them. We support data research at a local level. We also have worked hard to establish relations with other national nodes and groups and other EU initiatives that work on open research data. We promote RDA recommendations, and we also want to give visibility and support to other initiatives or other EU projects, such as the European Data Incubator, for example, or Fair for Health. Yeah, what has happened so far in our Spanish node since the establishment? I already mentioned the kickoff event happened in 2018 at the annual meeting of the Spanish Supercomputing Network in Valencia, and last year's annual meeting 2019 we also had a presence, and she organized a session on data management plans, a seminar workshop that was quite successful. We had our last year's RDA annual meeting collocated with the IBER-GRID conference, where also the Eoc Synergy kickoff meeting took place, because for us it was important to establish this connection with the ongoing EOSC initiatives in Spain. We have established relations with other national nodes. Very importantly, for example, the attending workshops or webinars, seminars organized by other nodes. Fabrizio also was a speaker at the agricultural data workshop that happened in January this year, January 2020 in Pisa, organized by the Italian node, where also Spanish researchers were invited to participate, funded by RDA in Spain. So yeah, then we worked hard on promoting the RDA open calls, and this has led to two successful applications from Spain to the adoption grant, which we both have here today. They will talk about this in more detail in a few minutes. And yeah, we also hosted a seminar in February here in Barcelona with Muhammad, who introduced his template for reproducible, shareable, and achievable data analysis here at the BSC. Yeah, so for now, looking at the future, we will continue to promote the RDA open calls, opportunities for Spanish researchers, and search for synergies and collaboration with other initiatives. That's most likely how the Spanish node will continue after the end of this RDA EU4 project now in September this year. Yeah, we will continue to be a national contact point as well. But yeah, this is more subject for our second part of this webinar. We will have a discussion around with our panelists. So for now, if you have any questions at any point or want to get in touch, you have our email addresses, mine and Fabrizio's, and you can visit our RDA Spain node page. Yeah, that's it from my side. I want to give the word to Muhammad, who will continue with presenting a little bit his work on the RDA adoption grant. Muhammad Aglagi is, sorry, let me introduce you for a second, a big data astronomer at the Institute for Astrophysics in the Canary Islands. So yeah, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Okay, so I'll just share the slides. And okay, so does my screen come up?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Tamara, and for organizing this this meeting and for introducing me. So yeah, as you said, so I'll be talking about this adoption grant that we received from the RDA that was really great. Enabled to support working on this project, because my main job is an astronomer. But well, thanks to this grant, many astronomers around me at least saw that dealing with data to do better astronomy is also a serious business, not just modeling galaxies and astrophysical things. Yeah, so it was really great, and I really thank the RDA and for this support. So this talk will be about this work that we've been doing over the last 5 years in order to do reproducible science, do proper, let's say, science in a way that we can actually publish our workflows. So the main workflow, the main output, the main RDA output that we adopted was the one done by Research Data Alliance and the World Data System on publishing data workflows. And you can see the main points here. Since there's only about 10 minutes time, I won't list them one by one, but in summary, they say we want all scholarly objects to be connected to enable reproducible research, and importantly, linking documentation, code, data, journal articles in an integrated environment and well documented. So I'll just explain the basic idea behind our solution and how we adopted this output, and and the solution that we defined. So when scientists think of analysis, this is what they think, right? Well, I have my software, I have my hard data coming from hardware, usually. I build my software, I run my software on the data, and boom, I have my paper. Then the day after the paper is published, they forget about it, right? I mean, you contact many researchers like 1 year after publication about some details, and they say, oh, sorry, that paper was last year, I don't know what I did with my code. We've got many, many researchers have experience in this. And that's because there's many questions in each step. Many things, regarding the software building, regarding where the data came from, regarding how the data, how the software was run on the data, and how the paper links with all of these are remaining. And the main problem is that if you want to answer all these questions, your paper is going to be 50 pages long, at least. Right. So it's not really an easy solution. It's not the problem is not just on the scientist side of not being able to publish all of these. So, and because many scientists are not taught in data carpentry, let's say, or data management, they just do ad hoc solutions for temporary problems and just go on. This creates really an environment where, trusting the work of others, well, not trusting, but reusing the work of others, being the fairness of the data and the results is really becoming a real big trouble in the sciences. So the principles behind this method are, well, the main one is really simple. Science is defined by its method, not its result. And so we defined a set of founding criteria. It has to be complete. It has to be modular, the solution. It has to be in plain text. No binary format specialized for some special software should be used. It has to be really simple. Of course, this is a subjective thing, but we try to make it objective. And inputs and outputs have to be automatically verified, and the whole thing has to be free software. Free and open source software. So it's not, using, non-free software is a real big problem in many science projects. Because 2 years later, the designer of the software decides to abandon that project, and the whole science project is gone. Okay, so but free software, its source is always available and anyone can use. So about the software building part, we built everything from source. So this project, as I said, is all plain text. So in the next few slides, I'm going to show a few plain text files here. So over here, you can see we actually built everything from source. So all the dependent software of the science software environment is built from source inside the project. So over here you can see a few of the software, and this is not easy because this actually took like almost 1 year of our time, because like this is a simple Python plotting library, and you can see how many dependencies it has. Changing a version of this is just matplotlib. Many scientists use it in Python to make plots in their papers. Just look at all these dependencies. Just changing one of their versions is enough to, you know, change something in your paper, in your plot. And if you don't have control over all of these, you don't have reproducibility and you don't have publishable workflows. So we built everything. We built the software environment, we built the C library, we built the C compiler, we built the shell environment, we built the paper creation tools. And the best thing is that you don't need root and administrative permissions. So like when for example, we want to run the project on the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, we don't have to spend 1 week interacting with the managers on like the versions of the different software, because we just build them from source without root permission. So yeah, even the administrators of like the BSc can be, you know, can spend their time on more important things than changing versions for us. Version projects with the, you know, different versions can be used in different projects without conflicting. So because we control a whole software building environment, you see that we're actually even able to list and acknowledge and cite all the software that are used in the project automatically. So the author doesn't have to worry about forgetting to cite an author, you know, a scientific software to give it recognition in its work. It just automatically goes in there because we build it. And then regarding the data, so all the input data sets are actually their URLs and their MD5 checksums are included as plain text files in the special file of the project. So when you want to actually go and get a project that's organized in this way, you just have to look at this file and you'll see exactly what type of data are used in the project. And finally, when the main part of the project, which is actually to do the analysis, to run the software on the data. So for that, we decided to use, well, arguably the most robust workflow management tool that has been designed over 40 years ago, and is still being essentially used in building all the operating systems that we're using today, and it's called Make. So the name of the language, well, the format. So it's really simple. You just have some prerequisites, you have some targets, and then the targets of this step become the prerequisites of the next step, creating this really nice chain connection between the elements. And finally, the paper. So after you finish the paper, after you finish the analysis, you want to put it in the paper. But the important thing, as the RDA recommendation also mentioned, was the linking between the analysis and the paper. And this is arguably historically the first step we did. So on the left, on the right, you can see a PDF, you know, screenshot of this paper from 2015 of mine. Now look at these numbers in the PDF, like 1.89, 2.37. They're not numbers in the LaTeX source that created this paper. They're macros, they're variables. And these macros actually come from a single file, and these, you know, see the same numbers are printed here, and they're created at the moment that particular part of the analysis was done. So it actually links the analysis directly to the sentence that the data, that the result is being reported in the paper. So as an example, I'll show this, you know, replicating this result from MENCAE 2020. And we actually showed this in our paper as one fast demonstration. So they actually report how many papers in biological sciences cite software tools. So the green line here is the fraction of papers that cite software tools over the years. And you can see like it's increased, which is a really positive sign. So we got their data sets, and just as a fast demonstration to show how we can manage, we can, you know, organize this data lineage. Over here, we replicated that plot. So they actually show only after 1997 we have more data. So, well, they had more data they didn't show. Okay, so how does it go? So the paper PDF, well, that's the final target of any project, right? So that has its LaTeX dependencies. And then this paper PDF is actually created by project.tech. Project.tech actually contains all of those macros that we mentioned before. And then all of those are verified. So before actually going into the paper, we keep the checksums of all the files, and they actually get automatically checked. And so, for example, over here, the demo plot.tech is the data set that actually is the information about the data set that went into that plot. And so this is the actual, you know, the actual columns that went into that plot. They came from table 3 of the MENCAE paper. And then Menke originally released it as an XLS file of Microsoft Office. And so over here, you can see that inputs.conf file, which is which has the URLs and the checksums for the project. So yeah, then finally, when we want to report it, we actually put the URLs here. We can actually report some numbers about the paper and some information about the plot. And this is really easily extensible. So you can actually really nicely maintain a large project or small, you know, and in a modular way to keep things simple. And finally, so you see, we're able to answer all of these questions in plain text format. And finally, well, that's the part where it gets really exciting. We're able to use Git because it's all plain text. So Git is, for those that aren't familiar, is a history of the project. So over here, you have, for example, today, so I'll just finish in a minute. So for example, today you have these answers. Tomorrow you develop your project evolves. So one of those answers changes. And so let's abstractify things. Git is a way to keep a history of all the changes you do in your files. So manage this project, managing data lineage is what we called it, is this main branch, and then you branch off the manage branch to start your project. You develop your project, manage develops. You can always update your project, and you can go on. And finally, when you publish the paper, you have the Git checksum in the published paper. So for example, over here, you can see 2 papers that we've published with it, and you actually see in the end of the abstract, we have the Git checksum showing how this can be done. And when you publish it, because the whole thing is in plain text, usually a project isn't over like 100 kilobytes. It's not even the size of one image in the paper. So we can upload it to Archive, we can upload it to Zenodo, and many different places. And it's in plain text, which is easily parsable. So to run the project, this is what you do. You can clone a project, and then you run project configure and project make. That's it. Well, it will take time. Like the configure part and the make part depends on the project. It can take days or weeks on a supercomputer, or just take 5 minutes on a normal laptop. It depends on the project. So, well, to conclude, so it enables easy verification, really easy to make research methods public, not just results in the papers. And it enables incremental science, so you can publish a 2-page paper, for example, just changing one parameter of one research into, and then discussing that, extracting metadata. All of this is public, this full lineage is public. When applied on a large scale, it can even be used, for example, in machine learning to do automatic workflow generation. So you can, like, say, use 1,000 papers on galaxy evolution or biocell evolution, and yeah, give it 1,000 papers and say, okay, design a workflow for me. It enables things like this. So I'll conclude here with these slides. These slides are available here in this link, and a longer version is available here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And yeah, if you're interested, you can get in contact with Mohammed anytime. You have your own website, so we will also try to make these slides available on our RDA note page, so you can get more info there. Next up, we have Joan Sala and Pierre-Antoine Bretonnet, who are working on the second adoption grant here in Spain. So Joan is a computer scientist currently working at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center here, assessing the quality of data metadata within the climate data store. Pierre-Antoine, also part of the Earth Sciences team here at the BSc and active in RDA for a few years already. So please, 2 of you, go ahead.
Hi, Tamara. This is Joan. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I will talk about the work we performed during the RDA 4.0 grant, applying it to the climate data store that is for the Copernicus Climate Change Service, and focusing on data and metadata, both at the same time. So as you all probably know, the Copernicus program has 6 operational services, and today we will be talking about the Climate Change Service that is intended for a wide range of users and applications, and provides information not only about the past climate observations, but also future projections. And that is very interesting because the goal here is to achieve a more sustainable future. So at the heart of this Copernicus project, we have the CDS. That's the software platform that delivers the data to the users. It has both a website and an API where the users can download. And we have also a toolbox where the users can play with the data. And let's not forget about a catalog that describes all the records that are inside this project. As for data types, we have both data coming from satellite, in situ observations, reanalysis, seasonal forecasts, and climate projections. So our work during this evaluation and quality control of this platform is to apply FAIR principles to metadata. That is, for instance, the use of standards such as the ISO 19115 metadata record standard, or as for the catalog, the OGC services known as Catalog Service for the Web, or CSW, make the data both interoperable and findable and accessible. We also have unique identifiers for each dataset, that is using DOIs, and we adapt our interfaces to follow the INSPIRE directive, that is a European data standard directive, and we intend to follow this so that we can exchange data with other projects. As for the quality controls we apply to metadata, that is both using formats that are well known to the community, such as script or NetCDF, that makes data interoperable and reusable, and also standard vocabularies to describe this data, and that is specifically for climate, that is the CF conventions or CMON. And we don't stop here. We go into the data and we look for possible outliers and report them back to the C3S, and also look for temporal and spatial gaps in the data. The screenshot on the right is how the metadata record looks like on the Copernicus site. And there is a download tab and a documentation tab where you can both download and look through the extensive documentation for each record. As for performed during this grant, we focused on the standardization of vocabularies. That is very important, and we are still working on this, and we're using CF, climate and forecast, and also using the common information model to describe how the data was produced, which data models were used, and also in which grid and projections, so in a standard way, describe the data. And we took the recommendations from the RDA metadata standards repository that came from a previous working group, and you can find them in the URL in this presentation. Last but not least, let's not forget about INSPIRE. We developed KPI, key performance indicator, to test our interfaces with the official EU REST API in order to check how INSPIRE compliant are we. As for dissemination activities during this RDA grant, we attended the past EOSC Symposium, European Open Science Cloud Symposium in Budapest last fall, and we presented in the use case section. And we have two publications coming up, one on the EOSC portal, and another one as an RDA adoption story that will be ready this summer. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Well, remember that we have a Q&A section here. So if you have any questions, you can type it in that part. Next up, we have Eva Mendes. Eva is a doctor in documentation professor at the Universidad Carlos III in Madrid. And she is also the RDA ambassador for interdisciplinary research. So thank you, Eva, for joining us today.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos, buenos días. Espero que compartir la pantalla un segundito. Ahí. Here we are. Okay. I think I have been checking all the audience, and I think they are all people and well-known people. And I think since this is the RDA note in Spain, I feel very weird talking in English. I don't know if the audience prefers that I switch into Spanish, because I think it's the main, I don't know if you have the control of the people. I have seen 38 all friends in the audience, but well, as you prefer, I can continue in English, or I can just switch into Spanish. What do you think?
Are you talking to me, or are you talking to the?
Yeah,
I'm
talking to you because I think the audience will answer in the chat. I'm not.
Okay, great. If the audience is fine with it, of course, go ahead and present in Spanish.
So sorry, just in one case, so I don't speak Spanish.
Okay, well, that's what I was. It's what I was thinking. That I was looking at the audience and everybody was from Spain, but you are the speakers. They don't speak Spanish. That's fine. Okay, well, I will be very brief because my presentation is very short, and what I'm going to share with you is my experience as an RDA ambassador. As Tamara was introducing me, I'm a Research Data Alliance Ambassador for Interdisciplinary Research. And what I really want to share with you is my experience as an RDA ambassador as such, because it's not a question that I'm now entitled like that, because I have been always what I said, that I have always been an RDA cheerleader. Before being an ambassador officially, I have been creating translations into Spanish of the RDA specifications. I created one of the initiatives on every language on the RDA specifications for libraries. I was kind of one of the motivators of the RDA EU, and I was thinking on many initiatives that they have been doing before doing this work as an RDA ambassador officially. What I want to share with you some questions. For example, why interdisciplinary research? Because I think science is mainly interdisciplinary, and I want to share you a particular case that it was mentioned before in my experience in the COVID-19 working group in RDA. In general, RDA is based on communities, is based on disciplines, and this initiative of the RDA ambassadors is mainly to address different disciplines, you know, and all my colleagues that you can see in this URL, the RDA European ambassadors, they are focusing on one discipline. But what I'm interested in is on connecting dots between disciplines, because it's the way that you can have a serendipitous discovery. And the serendipity is what it makes the difference, not in the vertical approach of science in your own business, in your own discipline, but when you can make it in a transversal way. The second question is, how can I bring the RDA into our interdisciplinary research endeavors? For example, I'm one of the members of the consortium of Fair for Health initiative, which is one of the projects funded by the European Commission. And I'm also trying to create connections with all the projects that I'm involved in, and make it RDA recommendations, RDA adoption cases, RDA working groups, and RDA interest groups. I have created an RDA working group. We are creating an RDA working group in the Fair for Health environment. I'm trying to create an interest group for the next plenary in Costa Rica. It's going to be online on citizen science. And I'm trying to bring together the communities, but also the disciplinary approaches that we are all involved in. And the third question is all the way around. How can we bring our interdisciplinary research endeavors into RDA? And this is what I want to share with you, one of my experiences in the COVID-19 working group that I was involved in. But also, we can share interdisciplinary research experience with RDA community. For example, in the context of EOSC, which is something that Sara Garavelli was mentioning at the very beginning, which is one of the key contexts where RDA is really focusing and really working on the European Open Science Club. This is what I'm doing, for example, and in Fair is Fair, which is another project that I'm involved in. And I'm trying to connect these different vertical approaches of science, of disciplinary approaches, with different EOSC projects that they are disciplinary, what we call the cluster projects, based on life science, on environmental science, PANOS, which is the cluster of photon and neutron, and social science and humanities. And what I'm trying to create is an interdisciplinary fair uptake, connecting at a metadata level, which is my expertise, where I'm trying to work more involved from this, vocabularies and interoperable metadata for the European Open Science Cloud. So not only working on one of the disciplinary approaches, which all the metadata, all the standards, all the RDA specification could be disciplinary oriented, but also getting a transversal approach that can make happen a discovery, as I mentioned before, based on serendipity. And the experience that I want to share with you very quickly is the experience of interdisciplinary research in the COVID-19 working group. We are in a pandemic, we are in a problem, and this problem, of course, has a vertical approach, which is epidemiology, medical science, health science, but also any discovery has to be related in a transversal way, because the COVID-19 working group not only focusing on different disciplinary approaches in the epidemiology or in another context that could be more or less targeted. We also address the community participation for data sharing, also indigenous data, legal and ethical considerations, which are transversal too, and the research software, which is another aspect which is transversal to any single research. And my experience as one of the co-moderators of the community participation subgroup was trying to address the participation of the community in the COVID-19 cases. For example, we mentioned in the specification in this report that was presented before, Sara was mentioning that the report was issued at the end of the previous month, on the 30th of June. And in this report, based on community participation, we try to focus on the data management life cycle, but not only in the information that is produced in the research as such, but also in the patient involvement, in the community involvement, and also in the citizen science involvement. So this is a very, very, very clear case where we can think that RDA needs interdisciplinary research, and that the interdisciplinary research needs the specifications of RDA. For example, in the metadata, in the community participation, or in other cases like patient involvement in the case of a pandemic outbreak like we are experimenting now. So thank you very much. This is a bit my experience, my approach in 10 minutes, and this is one of the previous initiatives that I was involved in, that was the connection with RDA Portugal and RDA Spain, that we were working on this approach of RDA Iberia, and we have a very good connection with other RDA disciplinary approaches, and also communities addressing different countries and different experiences. And that's it. It's my experience as an RDA ambassador, as an RDA cheerleader. I'm very happy to work for RDA because I believe that on the bottom-up initiatives and the community building things, and research data are very complex initiative, and very complex particular aspect on open science, which is my focus. And I think RDA has a very crucial role to play in that. Actually, in the final report of the European Open Science Policy Platform, that I was the chair until May, we mentioned the creation of something that could be very much addressed by RDA. That could be the open science registry, and RDA will be an element crucial in the development of the open science and in Europe. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Eva. Well, if you share your presentations with me, then maybe we can upload it on the note page for those who would like to have a look at it afterwards. Thank you. Thanks, Eva. Okay, so next on the agenda we have Alicia Gomez-Sanchez from the OpenAIRE National Open Access Desk. So yeah, Alicia is the project manager of the Open Access Desk at the FECIT, the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology. Please, Alicia, you can start.
My voice. I lost my voice. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tamara, for inviting me and FECIT and OpenAIRE to join this webinar. I think it's a great starting point for a good collaboration. I will share my screen. So I hope that's working. So this is only a very short presentation, and I will introduce what's OpenAIRE. Maybe many of you already know it, but I think it's also good to do it for all the RDA people that doesn't know very well what's OpenAIRE. And I will focus on the specific research data management services and tools that we have, and what are we working on for our communities. Of course, OpenAIRE does many other things that I think for this, in this context, is only, I will really focus on that. So what is OpenAIRE? OpenAIRE is a technological and service infrastructure created to support and accelerate and measure the correct implementation of European open access policies for scientific publications and for research data, and also to foster open science in the late times. So because OpenAIRE was born a few years ago in 2009, and it was a coordination and support action financed by the 7th Framework Program, and it has been financed until now. So the project will be ended by December this year. But in order to give continuity, we also created an OpenAIRE legal entity. So OpenAIRE will continue his job for a longer time. The main objective, or the central objective or mission of OpenAIRE, is to promote open academic communication and also to improve accessibility, reuse, reproducibility, and monitoring of research results, including data for any discipline and subject areas, not only across Europe, but also behind, so all over the world. For this, OpenAIRE creates services and resources and tools for librarians, for researchers, for repository managers, and also for policymakers. We have one of the so in case FECIT is the open, we also have OpenAIRE nodes for any country, for all the countries joining OpenAIRE. And FECIT has been part of the OpenAIRE consortium since its first edition. And FECIT was head desk in Spain. FECIT organizes and delivers training workshops, seminars, conferences. Can you hear me well? Okay,
well, you have been breaking up a little bit, Alicia.
Okay, so maybe I should close my video.
Yeah, maybe if you deactivate the video, it will be.
Because yeah, The open access, OpenAIRE NOAD, or National Help Desk, organizes conferences, seminars. We also have an online and also in-person support basic open access concepts. There are still many people, many researchers knowing how to put a publication in a repository or something like that, but also research data management and policymakers. One of the, well, we can also say the backbone of the OpenAIRE is its networks, which are these 34 open access desks. And this can be institutions, national institutions like FITID, or academic, research libraries, consortium. So there are different types of NOADs, OpenAIRE NOADs. So the NOADs, they have some main activities. For instance, we promote open scholarship, we organize workshops. We also try to outreach national key players, for instance, NCPs, funders, research groups, infrastructure. So there are many. We are not only working with researchers or with librarians or repository managers, we go behind them and try to reach funders and other key players for national policies. We also help gathering the European funded publications and research data, and we help to link them to all the information with projects in the OpenAIRE information space. And we have been working very hard on doing training and support for RDM for both institutions and funders. The NOADs, well, we can, you will have the presentation and also all the links, so that you will be able to see the NOADs for every country, and also for Spain, which are Pilar Rico and me for the moment. And well, what are our RDM services and tools at OpenAIRE level? We have a task force only devoted to research data management. And this RDM task force focuses on different areas. We give support. We also collect, for instance, user cases. We create guidelines and support materials. We also organize webinars, blog posts, and so on. Some of them, if you go here to this blog post, you will have, for instance, the last one. You will check all the user cases that we have for different countries, talking about how to support RDM. I put this list of resources for the users. Of course, I'm not going through it now for anyone, but because the presentation will be shared, you will find all these guides or guidelines that can help researchers to treat or to work on research data. We also have some blog posts, for instance, how the University of Vienna help or support research data management, or also the same with the University of Helsinki, and so on. And then further than this information and resources, we have, I would like to highlight two main sources. One is Argos, which is an online tool to support data management plans. We all know the DMP Online, which is great. This one is a bit more specific, which makes it a bit more difficult maybe at the beginning, but it helps very, very much with all the small things like creating a data management plan, selecting, for instance, vocabularies or any other issue. One of the main features are that you can use these templates and adapt it for different DMPs. it helps a lot using external vocabularies to describe data sets, and also make very easy to export and publish machine and human readable DMPs. This is the main page of Argos. Argos based in two. So one, you can create a DMP, but also you can publish the different data sets and link that to the DMP, to one DMP. The other important tool, I think, is Amnesia, which is a tool to anonymize data sets. This is a tool this is offered to a web interface. And also it detects duplicate anonymized files when you upload it to Zenodo. This is the link. Well, this is the page from Amnesia, but this is also, you will find a training webinar with slides and the recorded webinar that we did lately, so that you can have more information on Amnesia. And another nice service is OpenAIRE, the mining service. So text mining is a text mining tool where you can go through all the information that you have in the OpenAIRE Explorer, and you will be able to mine not only the text, the full text, but also the metadata. And you can find information about or extract information about projects, about citations, author affiliations, document similarity, and so on. So this also is used to enrich the OpenAIRE graph, and the results are presented in the OpenAIRE Discovery portal. This is the screenshot of the OpenAIRE mining service. And well, there are other issues like other tools like the OpenAIRE Graph Access API, which also helps to especially for scholarly communications and research analytic services. So it's quite interesting also. Anyway, if you have any question about RDM or any other open science or open access issue, also of the tools of OpenAIRE, you can contact us as NOADS for Spain, or you can also create tickets. And if, for instance, if it's something technical, this will be redirect straight to the technical team, because OpenAIRE is a quite big infrastructure. So we have like the governance team, we have the technical team, we have the nodes, and it's quite, well, complicated, but it's useful and it's very, very complete, I think. So this is, I'm not sure if I was talking too short or too long, or but I think this is a good overview of what we do.
Great, thank you very much, Alicia. We have one more presentation before we can start with the discussion round. Remember that if you have any questions, think about it also for the discussion round, put it in the Q&A or in the chat, so we can get back to it later. So our last presentation for today will be by Ignacio Blanquer, who is professor at the Polytechnic University in Valencia, also involved in the Eoc Synergy project, and he will talk to us today about the eScience network in Spain. So Ignacio.
Okay, thank you so much for the introduction. Let me share my screen now. I hope that when I go to presentation mode, you will keep seeing this, right? Okay, I will not share my camera since I had some issues in the connection. So I hope that you hear me well. So thank you very much for the invitation to present the activities of the Spanish Network for Open Science and also the activities in Eoc Synergy. So I will be direct to the point. So this Spanish Network for Open Science basically is a network project that was funded under the call of Acciones de Dinamización network, research networks funded by the Ministry of Science and Innovation. In this network, we participate through 13 groups, research groups, that have some interest on the area of the use of e-science infrastructure for the open science. So, this presentation will go a little more complementary to, the other presentations of my colleagues that are focusing a bit more on the research infrastructures, which I hope that will be balanced and will give more hints and tools for the researchers. So the idea of this network is to promote communication by sharing experience on the frame of EOSC, and to impulse the participation of Spanish partners and Spanish centers in the frame of EOSC. Also, we want to get a message from the EOSC more important panels back to the Spanish community, and also think on the sustainability. So we build the activities of this network. The networks in this instrument that is open in Spain is a short time one. Unfortunately, it's only for 1 year. But we build the activities based on the existing large-scale projects that we have in the area from the members that participate in the network, like those that are focused on scientific communities, those that are focused on service development related with the EOSC, and those that are focusing on EOSC building, like EOSC Hub and EOC Synergy, that I will comment later on. So very briefly, the network is basically focusing on increasing the awareness. So we have an important activity of dissemination through digital dissemination, having a website with documents of relevant documents for the EOSC, news or presentations, an online presence in the events that we unfortunately have been reduced in this year due to the impact of this COVID-19, but fostering the message of the network there. So we have an important international presence in international committees related with e-science and open science. So we try to get summaries and get to align policies from all the experts that we get. And we have the study of setting up a joint research unit to foster the participation of multiple consortia in European projects. So then we have also the idea or the action to increase the participation of Spanish institutions in work groups, in the projects, and in the service catalog of EOSC, which we think that is a way to make the research visible and increase the number of users and have more international dimension to research, and a small innovation and transfer action that we are implementing. This network has a website that has gets together all the information that we have gathered on our meetings about all the novelties, all the news, the documents that are relevant. We have the members of the network participate in key committees, like 5 of the EOSC working groups of the EOSC Secretariat, in the ERG, GOFER, or the ERIC forum. So we have an important channel for getting information and also to transfer and to communicate some decision that could be relevant for the whole Europe. And as I mentioned, we have an action, a task on increasing the participation in the Spanish centers in the European Open Science Cloud Catalog. So that was very briefly what the Spanish Network for Science, Open Science means. So, and I want to take a couple of minutes or a few minutes on the EOC Synergy. This EOC Synergy is a project that has been funded under the InfraEOS 5P call. The main aim is to integrate capacities and building capacities to enhance the uptake of EOSC. So the mission is to expand the EOSC capacity and capabilities, leveraging the investment and existing know-how and resources that comes from national digital infrastructure and the coordination of Ibergrid. So it's not, it's a project that you will see that it's coordinated mainly by Spain and Portugal, but has a dimension, the European dimension, that goes beyond these 2 countries. So we focus on three main aims: in service interoperability to compliance to official and de facto standards EOC core services. The integration of EOC core services is an important point. We are fostering that the thematic services that participate in this initiative uptake core services and EOC related services to enhance and to increase the quality and the scale of their services, and also policy alignment, fostering the adoption of EOC FAIR principles and implementing a very interesting activity of evaluating the quality of the software developed through a set of metrics. So, I'm sorry. In a brief, in a nutshell, you can see all the partners that participate in the project. As I mentioned, the regional dimension is wide, and the 5 activities that we have in the project coordinated by the CSIC are: first, promote a high quality service. So in the project, we have defined a software quality assessment procedure that evaluates code quality, that evaluates compliance to standards, and also vulnerabilities and other facts that could demonstrate or could help the researchers to increase the quality of their production. We have a capacity expansion at the level of the infrastructure, in which we are integrating resources from distributed centers in order to provide higher capacity of processing and storage for the services to scale up to serve a wider range of researchers. We have 10 thematic services from 4 scientific areas that range from Earth observation, environment, biomedicine, and astrophysics, that are increasing the capacity of the services that they already have, aiming to a wider range of resources and a wider range of problems by the undertaking EOC services and resources. To enhance the use of the services and also the thematic services, we have an action on the skills and training and skills development, in which we are developing a platform dedicated for the guiding not only the use of the final thematic services, but also the adoption of specific EOC services for the application developers. And everything aligned with the level of the policy, with collaboration with regional projects. And I want to end with one slide that try to see how how these 2 activities try to play. So we see that the work that we are, there are a lot of activities, a lot of actions that are being implemented around, and we have an international ecosystem of the infra-EOS 5B projects that are covering the whole Europe in several regions and fostering the uptake of EOC. We have EOC Hub, we have the EOC Secretariat, and other projects that are fostering a specific problem or addressing specific problems in the landscape of EOC. We have S3 clusters, and all this international ecosystem has let's say a parallel international ecosystem, which we have the scientific infrastructure, we have Eoc Synergy as our own regional project, we have the national network for open science. So with all this ecosystem inside these 2 projects, we are trying to make a landscape analysis, a gap analysis, and trying to foster the national, international relation, trying to increase the communication and the knowledge at the national level, and trying to have higher representation of our national actors in Europe. And that was all from my presentation. I'm happy to go to the questions.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. Yeah, I don't see any questions for the moment. We've run a bit late with this first part of the webinar, but we are finished now with all the presentations. We hope you can stay a bit longer. So now we will start with the second part. Yeah, I will give the word to Fabrizio Gagliardi, who will moderate this session.
Okay, thanks, Tamara. I'm happy for what I've heard so far, and especially well, I mean, the synergy or the potential synergy that we can, well, we have identified among the various activity. I mean, especially OpenAIRE, RDA, the Spanish node, what Sara told us about the future. So the establishment of a more permanent RDA entity in Europe with, if I understood correctly, regional activities. Which of course bring us back to some early ideas. Well, actually, a little bit of nostalgia when Ignacio mentioned Iberigrid. I mean, there's something that we started together, Ignacio, 15 years ago, something like that. So I'm very pleased to see that it's still going on strong. So there is clearly confirmation that sharing data among the various scientific communities is very important. That's why we have this kind of flourishing numbers of initiative. So for me, the issue is to really understanding better how we can rationalize, because of course, you know, money is certainly always going to be an issue, money to support our overall goal. We know that the European Commission has been very generous. They have been putting, let's say, in EOSC related activities in the current program that ends shortly, about 600 million euros. So that is quite some money. And the plan, I understand, is to continue to invest in, let's say, in the data side area, while in parallel, other part of the European Commission are investing big in the computing part of it. So I think, you know, we live, of course, a difficult time with the COVID, with the budget for the next 7-year program, which is all up in the air, but all the indications are that there will still be continuous amount of funding for research, not only the computing side, the application side, but very much the issue we've been talking today. So I really would like to open the floor to, well, I've seen today, well, we have more than 40 attendees that I thank all of them for taking the time to spend you know, some time with us today, and especially to stay in touch. So all those of you who are not member of RDA in general, RDA in Spain, our Spanish node, you know, feel free to join in, to inscribe, and we will keep you posted. Whatever will happen, we will certainly keep RDA Spanish node alive and put you in touch. So I think, you know, the synergy for me is one of the major issue where, of course, I'm sure the panelists can contribute, but I wonder if from the audience there is some more specific question before I start maybe asking the panelists to address this first issue. So is there any question from the audience? Well, if not, maybe let's start with Alicia with an OpenAIRE perspective. So OpenAIRE, I think, is going to continue, is going to be part of the next, you know, EOSC whatever landscape. So how does Alicia see a possible stronger involvement synergy between what OpenAIRE does and what I think, you know, she understood RDA and RDA Spain can do, because I think, you know, the subjects are very similar.
Yes, well, I'm really not sure because I'm not directly involved in all these legal entities, agreements, and so on. But for instance, I think, well, the legal entity, I could share this link from the future of OpenAIRE. So OpenAIRE will be or is already a legal entity. So of course we have different standing committees working in different areas. For instance, open science strategies, training and support, also service and technologies, and of course the work will continue. We are working on our tools like Argos, Amnesia, and developing all services that researchers can use. I also know that EOSC is, or as far as I know, EOSC is also intending to be a legal entity. By the way, I'm not sure if RDA will be also part of this EOSC legal entity. Maybe you can help me with that. And well, in Spain, we will have other people or other institutions being as or taking part of this foundational EOSC legal entity. But for instance, Petit, as OpenAIRE AMCE member, will be also in this EOSC legal entity. So because OpenAIRE will be also one of the members. I don't know, is RDA also taking part, being a member of the?
I think it's a question maybe Sara could address. You seem to be, well, I don't hear you. You don't seem to be muted, but we can't hear you, Sara. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes,
oh.
Now yes.
Maybe it works better without the headphones. Yes, I was saying that surely RDA is planning to be one of the members of the EOSC Association in the future. So absolutely, yeah, that's, and if I can add maybe another comment, or at least as far as I know from the Infra EOSC 03 proposal. So in that proposal, OpenAIRE has a very prominent role on the training part,
yes,
which of course is another area of synergy with RDA. But I do think that, or at least from my perspective, for me it's very clear what are the different roles or the different initiatives. So I think that there is really room for collaboration. So it's just a matter of positioning exactly and bringing together all the different pieces, and all these initiatives can collaborate because the focus is slightly different. So they are all working with the same common objective, but I think that we all have different skills and competencies to bring to the table. So, yeah.
Yes, I agree completely. And if you see also the standing committees of the OpenAIRE AMCE, you will see that we have a very strong working people, I don't know, working on training and support, and also in infrastructure, as I said before. So I think also that the important point here is to join forces and to bring together what we cannot do everything, neither RDA or OpenAIRE or, so the important point is to say, okay, what can we do better, yeah, I might say, and then put together this information and these skills and this knowledge and these tools, and then help, to achieve an open science landscape as we would like. So I think this is, but of course we will keep working on this area, and of course collaborating with RDA Europe. Maybe there are also other more formal ways to collaborate. I don't know.
Okay, well, it seems to me that yes, the process is ongoing for stronger synergy. Of course, we'll have to see what the European Commission will do. Their support is essential, and essential to be part of their vision. More and more, the European Commission is speaking about integrating all the various pieces to support science. So definitely the data, but also the interconnectivity among data, how you move data, especially when science produces large amount of data. I mean, I spent a considerable amount of my life at European Center for Particle Physics. There, the data they produce is huge. So when you start to share data in very, very large quantities, I mean, you have also issues of latency of data transmission, volume, the cost of storing them. So definitely this kind of hyper connected infrastructure are becoming more and more relevant, and they are often mentioned by the European Commission. So if I'm not mistaken, the European Commission dreams of supporting science now and in the future with big data center, big supercomputer centers, a kind of a more distributed computing infrastructure for catering for what is normally called the long tail of science, and all together. So thinking while maybe in the past the support of the European Commission was more focused on one community, one approach or the other, now they are trying to push along this overall synergetic overarching approach. So I expect to see synergy being pushed much stronger in the future. Of course, you know, we know the European Commission, so we know that high performance computing, one thing is DG Connect, the other is more DG RTD. So these people will have to, and you know, they report to different commissioner. One is Breton, one is Maria Gabriel. So, you know, we know this complicated landscape, but hopefully everything will go for the very best. And, you know, we'll be living in a more efficient world for science. Now, I think that is good. So synergy, I think, is something we have addressed. There is a question coming from an audience from Gonzalo Merino about the training. He underlined some of the tools presented by the previous speakers, by the panelists, are quite interesting. I think maybe also refer specifically to the tools presented by Mohammad. And he asked about the training. First of all, certainly, you know, as a Spanish node, Tamara and I, we will make all those presentations available so people can go directly back to the source and ask for specific initiative. But if there are enough interest, let's say on Mohammad system, you know, to be explained more in detail and some training specifically addressed, that is the kind of thing we can help organize. We could help organizing a webinar specific of those two, or the other tools that have been presented by Pierre-Antoine team. So yes, I mean, training is one of the things that, although we don't have specific resources allocated, is one of the kind of facilitating action that the Spanish node can do in the context of RDA related activity, like the one that Mohammad and Pierre-Antoine team and Joanna has presented.
Yes, Fabrizio, can I maybe just make a small comment?
Go ahead, please.
So at the IAC, after this RDA, because after the RDA grant and the institution started to recognize the importance of these, so we actually started a series of YouTube recordings. And every month we actually call it short meetings on astro computing knowledge, which is short for SMAC, right? Yeah, so every month we're discussing some of the basic things, and we're recording it and putting it on YouTube. So for example, in this one, we discussed essentially, went really to the very, very core basics of what is Unix, you know, what is Linux, the operating system, the history, because there's so many varieties. And then later we went into the second one, we discussed like the shell power tools, you know, the common command line tools that are used. And we went into GNU. Now this one is more for astronomers, GNU astronomy utilities. But like this is one thing that we've got really good positive feedback, even from more experienced researchers that are really not usually trained in data analysis. This is one sideways, besides the webinars and the meetings and the like workshops that we can organize, these were also really interesting.
Okay, great, Mohammad. And again, where we could help, if you keep us in touch, we could certainly reflect and advertise your YouTubes, out from our RDA Spain network. Absolutely.
Great.
Okay, so let's see. Tamara, did you get other question from the audience?
No, for the moment, no further questions from the audience.
Okay, so maybe since we don't have them much time left, and we have a considerable, well, we have a reasonable number of distinguished panelists, maybe I'd like to go through all of them, maybe starting with Eva, who address the interdisciplinary aspect, which I think is going to become more and more relevant. I mean, the COVID is a typical case where you need not just one class of scientists, but you need a really multidisciplinary approach. So I don't know, Eva, if you want to take the floor for a few minutes and just try to draw the conclusion. You heard all what was going on with OpenAIRE, RDA, and the stuff in which you are more directly involved. So if you can draw a little bit the conclusion, maybe give us some view where to move next, especially with the new framework program coming along. Eva?
Well, I would like to have the magic ball to say where to move next, but of course I think it's absolutely in the research spirit. Open science is there. Open science appears in the final report of Science, Research and Innovation of the Commission 31 times, and I think also in the Open Science Policy Platform final report, we mentioned this openness and this interdisciplinary thing. And also we are more and more talking about open knowledge, more than open science, because it's a way also to put on board not only the STM disciplines, so there's more hard science disciplines, but also the humanities, social science. COVID-19, as what Fabrizio was saying, was a demonstration that we need social science and we need other research disciplines to be on board to challenge. The COVID-19 was one of the clear urgent cases, but we have also on top of the table the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Sustainable Development Goals are going to be addressed with research data, multidisciplinary research data. And I would like to believe that EOSC will be the container for that Sustainable Development Goals initiatives, solutions coming up of research and science. I think also this open knowledge approach is on the Spanish Commission of Open Science that is recently created in the context of FACIT. Probably Alicia has heard also about that. And I'm one of the experts in this Commission of Open Science in Spain. And I think the evaluation agency is very much on these open knowledge initiatives. We had a workshop last week with the Conference of Rectors in Spain and in Portugal, the CRUE Group Open Science workshop, and we agree upon these open knowledge and open approaches that they are coming along in the near future. Of course, the future is always uncertain, but the uncertainty that we have nowadays is huge with this pandemic thing. So actually, I'm still in Australia. I came from a research period of time, and I'm stuck here. So this is very challenging times, and also we have to count with the patients, citizens, and everybody to come along. And many of them are producing data, and that's why RDA is so important, because we are addressing those data.
Very good, thank you, Eva. Now, moving maybe to Ignacio. I think you mentioned that this Spanish science initiative is funded for a limited amount of time. Maybe I don't know if you can also, from your point of view, address the point of the synergy among all the various activity that we heard so far, especially looking forward, because I guess our audience are very much interested in what's going on now, but probably even more what is going to happen, so that they can address their scientific data sharing issues and needs in contexts where they are reasonably assured to be supported for quite some time to come. Ignazio?
Yes, thank you, Fabrizio. Indeed, I mean, the initiative of the Spanish network is a short-time one, but there's an interest of having a long, I will put my video on so you can see. There is an interest from the ministry to have a larger scale or long-term initiative, which is not clear at this moment as the structure, since I mean, it was stopped due to all these administrative issues, but it was retaken recently. So I hope that I will be able to inform more in the future for that time. So indeed, synergies are very important in the projects, in all those infra EOS 5B projects. There's a lot of task forces that have been created to I mean, harmonize and exchange information. There's one specific task in all the projects dedicated to policy that I think is relevant for the RDA, because we have many, I mean, decisions we are taking in analyzing the current status and identifying gaps, and I think that would be a good point. And one of the points in which I would like to stress a bit the role of EOC Synergies on the quality. I mean, one of the things that is very important for me thinking on the sustainability is to have I mean, to demonstrate and maintain the quality of the services of the data. I mean, FAIR is a very wonderful initiative to ensure, or I mean, methodology, whatever we can say, in order to ensure that the data is reusable and long term. But we have to, I mean, extend this also to the services that make the analysis of the data. We have seen also with the training materials that they become obsolete quick on time, and we have to work on having a sustained quality on software and training material.
Very good, thanks Ignazio. So again, let me check with Tamara. Okay, I've seen that on the chat there are some ongoing follow-up information from Mohammad on where to find the sources for basic training. So I think we have covered the training. Now maybe moving to the you know, the beneficiaries, to the scientists producing and consuming data. Maybe I would like to go around Mohammad and Joan to understand how do they see their interests, their requirements, you know, what are the top priority? What do they really desperately need for all those initiatives that are being discussed in the context of the next program of the European Commission? Really, what are their most pressing issue that they would like to see? Okay, we already mentioned interoperability. We mentioned the possibility of sharing data on a wider base. I also added, you know, from my, let's say, technological background, the importance that you can move data cheaply and quickly in large volumes, which maybe does not concern all of the scientists, but does concern certain scientists, the one who perform, you know, so-called big science. So maybe let's start with John. I mean, what are your most pressing needs that you like, you know, policy and organization and you know, coordinating structure like the one you heard be presented today to address in the future with top priority? John?
Yeah, so my opinion, personal opinion, of course, is that Copernicus, the climate change service, is on a good path to standardize metadata and make it available to the users. But we still have a long road ahead to make this a bit more user-friendly, because we always think about applications for scientists, but Copernicus programs are intended for a wider use, and I think it would be nice to to refurbish the websites and and the documentation to make it a bit more user-friendly and to reach a wider user community. That is my 5 cents.
That's very good. Yes, I think it's a fundamental point, especially considering the huge amount of resources that Europe is putting Copernicus, definitely making access easier to all the scientists, even the one who are less familiar maybe with the system, and eventually to to people who want to use Copernicus data for starting their own initiative, their own business or whatsoever. I think definitely is an important priority, which of course, moving forward, the various bodies that have been presented today could try to address. Okay, moving now to more.
Sorry, Fabrizio.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, Pierre-Antoine, sorry.
Just to add also another point on this, that we are working on quality assurance in Copernicus, and we have our own standards that are based on the community of climate, of earth sciences, but also having a RDA stamp, let's say, of quality, of standards, could also help to have something to say, okay, well, it's some data that has been produced by the community of earth sciences, but look, we have checked outside, and we have some quality assurance that are not only based on our own experience, and that could, well, maybe help promote the data outside and to give trust to external users that we are trying to reach with Copernicus.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I don't know if Sara wants to comment, because I remember in the past, the RDA was, I don't know if that was completed, but it was the idea of having a kind of seal of approval by RDA on standards like the one you, Pierre-Antoine, just mentioned. I don't know, Sara, if you can refresh.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a sort of recurring topic in RDA, but I mean, RDA is not a certification body, so that's, I mean, and it's not aiming to become one. But yes, there is still, I mean, there are still some discussions about a sort of maybe lightweight stamp or anything similar. So, I mean, the point is that the more consolidated procedure about standards is the one of the ICT technical specification, for which certain conditions need to be met for moving a recommendation or an output into a standard. But yes, I mean, it's something that I mean, if this is something that the community thinks might be useful, probably we can bring it again to the discussion. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I think so, and seems to be a clear request coming from at least part of the audience. So yes, I would encourage RDA to reconsidering that for the future would be another value. So that brings us to the top. I mean, Mohammad, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so about what you asked from a researcher's perspective, what I've seen so far is incentives, like, academic or work, useful incentives to encourage scientists to take up this extra burden, because all of these are extra work. These are things that, a scientist doing astronomy or climate science or biology or sociology, what defines their job is publishing papers. And this data management thing is an extra burden for them. And unless we can create some kinds of academic incentives for them to take up this extra effort, because it takes time, it takes, it takes, for them, it takes, the cost is like delayed paper publishing. And this is bad for their jobs generally. Like in my case, even it was like, it was more from the practical incentive that I started all of this, It was because my own research was really slowing down, and I started developing this to speed up my research. You know, initially, maybe the first days when I started during my PhD course, I wasn't thinking, I didn't even consider publication of this workflow and, you know, all of these things. It was mainly for practical, the practical necessity pushed me to this. But many researchers just, you know, just do it manually and just pass it on, you know. And I think, yes, somehow on the large scale, what you mentioned about like what kind of policies and what kind of institutions can help is creating some kind of academic incentive for researchers to do this.
Yeah, okay, we reached the top of the hour, so we should try to wrap up. But what you are mentioning, Mohammad, I mean, is, yeah, okay, Eva is leaving us, so thank you, Eva. Likes your flag. Next time I will put the Catalan flag. Okay, I think, you know, the program of incentive, it is a very important one. It's get discussed every day. I mean, it's part of the way in which, you know, academics, you know, build their careers. And I think the situation is going to change, particularly in the context of the Association for Computer Machinery, ACM, where, you know, both Tamara and I are involved. This is a current ongoing discussion because clearly, you know, every time you read an assessment of the quality of data, which are fundamental, you know, for producing science, you see very bad discovery. I mean, the amount of data which are not really verified, or if you try to verify, they fail miserably, is a large percentage of the scientific production. I mean, of course, at our level, there is no much we can say. Of course, RDA should be encouraged, and the other initiative, you know, OpenAIRE and the others should really be encouraged to promote the idea that producing data and verified data is an essential part of the scientific, you know, scientific production. So in a way, scientists who not only work on the algorithmic and the science side, but they take data, maybe produced by other experiments, other scientists, they work on those data and they confirm the quality of the data or they correct the data. They should be definitely gratified at the same level as when you come up with the new algorithm, something like that. I think everybody is aware there is a problem. Of course, the funding agency, you know, they will take a little bit longer to realize that, and, you know, the academic institution. But the problem is well known now, so I'm kind of moderate optimistic, and especially for organizations like EOSC, RDA, OpenAIRE also push, maybe by having organized a specific activity, a series of workshops, you know, collecting the various input, and then producing some kind of a white paper to be pushed to the funding agency, to be pushed to academic authorities. Yeah, that's definitely something that should be very high in our agenda. So I don't know, Tamara, if there is any final comment you want to make before we get the webinar to an end. I'm very pleased with the quality of the discussion, the contribution of our panelists, and, you know, the several people who attended. I don't know, Tamara, if you want to bring the webinar to close.
Yes, same from my side. I think we had some very good contributions here today, also here in the discussion round at the end. I want to thank all of our panelists very much for their time today and for joining us, and also, of course, all of the participants. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, I think that's it from our side. We've just taken a bit longer than expected, but I hope some stayed until the end. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all, and stay tuned. Watch this space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.